today we're going to be focusing a lot more on the testing aspect, which is something that you and your team specialize in. So I think I'm just going to kick off and ask what is involved in testing for different learning disabilities or different conditions?
Many people are probably familiar with the term neuropsych testing. And so essentially what we do is we call it taking a look under the hood. So we want to look at kind of the different patterns that people show in their cognitive abilities, their academic abilities, behavioral and emotional symptoms, and then executive functioning. And so there's a lot of different ways that we do that, but essentially it's kind of a combination of self-report measures, so a lot of kind of questions of how well does this sound like it fits you, for the person experiencing symptoms as well as anyone in their life. So that could be teachers, parents. For adults it could be a partner or a roommate. And then there's a lot of objective measures that we give, and that's to look more in detail at specific types of functioning. So, for example, cognitive functioning, when we give these tests, we're looking at things like processing speed, working memory, verbal comprehension, fluid reasoning, visual spatial abilities. And then we look at academic abilities because sometimes, when we have parents come in and say, my child is just like really, really bright or did really well in school, but something, they made it to high school and something's just not clicking or they're not doing as well as they usually do. So it's important to get an academic sample in these types of tests because it can tell us a lot, especially because the way that we do the academic tests, they kind of build on each other. So we can see kind of at each level, like for writing, for example, we can see, is it a spelling issue? Is it combining sentences? Or is it more of a higher level, kind of building an essay or organizing a paper or something like that? Like, where do we kind of see the skill drop off?
Mm.
And then executive functioning testing, we're looking at, and we'll talk a little bit about this later, but the term executive function is pretty broad and it covers a wide array of different kind of skills and behaviors. And when we look for things through this testing, we're looking at things like working memory abilities, sustained attention abilities, cognitive shifting, so kind of being able to think about one thing and shift to thinking about another thing fluidly. And then at the end of all of this testing, what we do is we kind of lay it all out and look at it all together. And that's combined with a person's personal history, medical history, family history. We like to get a sample from the school. What is their behavior looking like at school? What are the teachers seeing? And then as well as their own self-report, right? Oftentimes we'll have kids report that they're having trouble paying attention, but the parents and the teachers don't necessarily see evidence of that. And so it's good to get kind of a multi perspective view on what's going on. And then from there, we kind of, look at strengths and weaknesses. So I usually tell parents from the get-go, my goal is usually not to find a diagnosis for a child.
Mm.
I think diagnostic clarity is important. And, if we're coming in with a specific question, we definitely try and answer that. But I think at minimum, we really try and, we're looking into all these really detailed parts of the brain that we don't necessarily get to see isolated as much as we would hope in everyday situations, and we can get a pretty unique profile of strengths and weaknesses with that. And so I think that at minimum is what parents find very helpful with this testing, is just kind of figuring out, areas that their kid does really well in and areas that there might be more of a struggle, and kind of, using their unique kind of set of skills to come up with specific recommendations that are going to help their kid succeed in life across the board. So.